Hey everyone, today for our Devo Thought, we're not necessarily going to be in one specific passage, but instead we're going to look at a lot of different things that happen throughout the book of Daniel. So if you want to buckle up, here we go. So if you're unfamiliar, I guarantee you've heard of the Israelite exile, right? They were living in the promised land, but they were not keeping the terms of the covenant. There were all these prophets coming up to Israel, begging them to turn, to seek the Lord and live, all these different things, but Israel doesn't listen. So as a result of that, they are exiled from the land. And Daniel and his friends and his clan and family and neighbors and all them, they are exiled out to Babylon. So that is where we find Daniel. And I'm not going to go through and read all of it because most of us know the story. We've heard it since we were young. Daniel and his friends, they were from a royal line. They were literate, so they were valuable. They were being trained up to be the king's assistants and all these different things. And when he gets there, he's asked to compromise his Jewish beliefs and Jewish customs by eating certain things and acting in certain ways. So he begs the person who's over him, saying, no, let us do things but our way, and then you can see if we measure apples to apples. So verse 17 is where we find them. As for these four youths, talking about Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they're Babylonian names anyways. So verse 17 in chapter 1. As for these four youths, God gave them learning and skill in all literature and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding of all visions and dreams. At the end of the time, when the king had commanded that they should be brought to the chief of the eunuchs, they were brought in before Nebuchadnezzar. And the king spoke with them, and among all of them none was found like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore they stood before the king. In every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king inquired of them, he found them to be 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters that were in all the kingdom. And the story goes on, and if you keep reading, Nebuchadnezzar has this crazy dream that Daniel interprets, and the king, being kind of egotistical, if you want to read it yourself, you can go and check out how that kind of plays out. He interprets the dream, but in a weird way, and ends up making a giant statue of himself. And then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, those guys who we named earlier, those are their Hebrew names. You know them by their Babylonian names. They refuse to bow down, and they get thrown into the furnace. And you're kind of wondering, okay, where's Daniel? What happened to him? What's going on? And you're wondering, okay, what is Daniel going to do? Because he's surely aware that his friends have been sentenced to death, and we don't really see that he does anything. But God saves them. And then after that, you're wondering, okay, is the relationship between Daniel and Babylon going to be rocky? What's going to happen? And you keep going, and you see that Daniel continues to faithfully serve Babylon. He's kind to Nebuchadnezzar and continues actually to interpret dreams. And then the kingship changes hands. And Daniel's still a high up position ranking official, and he's still seeking the well-being of Babylon, which is kind of weird because a lot of us, if we were taken captive by someone and we gained their trust, we'd be trying to find a way to subvert them or to take them down from the inside, but that's not what happens. Then as the kingship changes hands, y'all know the episode of Daniel in the lion's den. So Daniel gets thrown into the lion's den, he's mistreated, all this stuff happens. Then he comes out, and what happens? Now, at that point, surely Daniel's had enough. His friends are thrown into a furnace, he's thrown into a lion's den. Daniel's God is being disrespected in some ways by the second king. But what does he do? Once he gets out of the lion's den, he continues to serve Babylon. Which is weird, because you'd think he'd try and raise up an army, start a coup or something, because he has a lot of power. But he chooses not to do that. Instead, he chooses to faithfully serve in his job. But more importantly, to faithfully serve his God. You're probably not second in command in a kingdom. You're probably not interpreting your boss's dreams, or whoever is above you, whether it be in your job or the government or whatever. But we all have this choice can we seek the well-being, or should we seek the well-being of those that we're under, or should we do something else and try and subvert them or whatever? And I want to challenge you to try to take the path that Daniel took here. To serve faithfully and lovingly those who you're under, those who are in charge of you, in whatever hierarchy that you find yourself in. But to equally and actually more so serve your God. And actually what ends up happening is some people think, well, it has to be either one or the other. I can't serve God and these other people faithfully. Like, how is it going to work? But what Daniel does and what his friends do, and from that passage we read earlier, we see that when you serve God fully, you're actually better suited to serve those others, right? No one else was found like Daniel and his friends because they were so focused on serving God first and the king second. So I want to challenge you with that. Really dive, if you want to be a better employee, if you want to be promoted, if you want to find yourself in a better place than you are now, the first place to start is not trying to suck up to the boss. The first place to start is not trying to work your way up the social ladder, try and get a better income. The first place to start is by diving into your relationship with God, by following this pattern that Daniel and all of his friends are following here. So that's my challenge for you today. Dive into your relationship with God deeper and deeper and be faithful to that above anything else, and just see where God takes you. God blesses those who seek Him. So I encourage you to start on that journey if you haven't. If you have, I want to encourage you that you're doing the right thing. Keep on chasing after God more than anything else, and just wait and see how God blesses you, those around you, those that you're working for. And that's our thought for today. If you want to be notified whenever we put up another video, you can subscribe to the channel, click the bell icon. Until then, we'll see you next time.